Okay, now recording. And this, chapter 22, right? Yes, 22 of Star Trek the Motion Picture. Some of this is... I got technical issues. Some of it is this 70s or Roddenberry again? Yeah, because some of it is also like... We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Starts off with the captain's log, saying that it's only 3.31 hours from Earth. How do they know this? Okay, and yes, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there with this. How do they know? They are inside of V'ger. They have been inside it for some number of hours. They don't actually know the speed V'ger is going at. I mean, if they went... I know I'm obsessing over the one word of halt. But it still is. Halt is different from hold relative position, is different from station keeping. That is about, no, you are maintaining your position compared to this. Saying that you have halted, and even it said no forward movement, means you are stopped. Which, if it's just that, well, you're part of V'ger's warp system now, so you're traveling at V'ger's warp speed, that's fine. I'm okay with assuming that. But that doesn't mean you know now what the speed is that you're traveling at. You don't... Okay, if direction changed, you should know that. But you don't know if the speed is increased or if it has decreased. And you are inside of a shell that's inside of a massive cloud. You're not getting positional information. Okay, the way I put in my notes is you're basically dead reckoning with only a clock, no other instrumentation. That's called a guess. So yeah, that does annoy me. We also get, they have apparently gotten close enough to Earth that they're picking up Starfleet transmissions. Which is very difficult because it's having to come through the cloud, which is a bunch of static, but still Uhura managed to pick it out. The intruder's on their outer monitors. It's not saying how far away it is, which, by the way, that I'm okay with. Like, when I've talked before about scales and how I just try to leave it be relative, it's like, that's exactly the kind of thing that I mean. It's like, oh yeah, it's being picked up on long range or extreme long range sensors. How far is that? I don't know. It's not important. Point is, it's just out there real far. That's fine. Go with that. Anyway. It was a lunar report to Starfleet, sir. They have the intruder on the outer monitors. Okay, nothing else. They must be making some attempt to reach us. The lunar report referred to us as missing, sir. That's fair. We did disappear a while ago because, we entered the cloud. Probably destroyed. Okay, you see, now, Starfleet, really? They're on a mission to investigate this thing. You shouldn't just go with, oh, well, yeah, they're probably all dead. It's like, no, you don't have actual evidence to support that. They just disappeared. That's missing. It's also not been that long. But additionally, this is another, how I was talking, I will not stop bringing it up so long as it's relevant. Send a report to Starfleet every hour. Send every 15 minutes, every 10 minutes. Doing that stuff, you would have reported, hey, we're entering the cloud now. Hey, we've encountered the ship. Inside of it, here's the description. And we're going, and it's like tractor beams locked onto us. Okay, we are being pulled into it. It does not appear hostile, but it is pulling us in. This whole probably destroyed, it's like, there's not necessarily any reason, any evidence that Starfleet has to support that. So I do think it is totally inappropriate that that's what they would be saying. Missing, yes. Presumed mission failure, that would be better. Because it is hey, it's still coming. They haven't succeeded yet. That's presumed mission failure. I'm okay with that, but no, not just probably destroyed. It's like, no. Then there's a thing about Kirk tells Uhura, put a booster on the location beacon. And she's like, why? Come on, don't do that. But then she suddenly understood, it says, and there was a hint of a professional compliment in the look she gave Kirk as she went to work. Because what it explains, and it's a stupid explanation, is that because of the wall of static that is the cloud, Starfleet is going to have a hard time picking out any signals through it. But a repeating beacon, it should detect, or at least be able to realize, hey, that's not static. At which point, then, he's like, okay, then it'll be able to pick up the message that I have to broadcast there. It's like, huh? Beacon going boo, boo, boo is very different from this is James C. Kirk of the United States, United Starship Enterprise, providing my latest log. That's very different, and it's also well, I mean, true. The location beacon would have to be more than boo, boo. It would have to be more than that because it would have to be identifying the Enterprise, which would probably be something like 1701, and then some other code information to best identify. Like if you're an American, if you were broadcasting out, this would be dumb, but broadcasting out your social security number, because it's in theory going to uniquely identify you, or your phone number, again, uniquely identifying. It's like you would have some sort of ID thing tied to that. That's fine, but still, it's like that's very different, and it's probably just being constantly scanned for anyway. All location beacons, so you know where every starship is, every ship is. Versus a message, and it's like, how are you certain it's going to be picked up by Earth? That it's like, oh well, if we're getting that beacon, then we should also be looking at this frequency for this stuff. It's a leap. It is a leap, and it does try to explain that. I mean, it does try to explain that Starfleet has got people that once they know there's a signal there, they can start pulling out the static, but still is the log message will be more involved. And it's like, unless you're broadcasting both at the same time, and they will know, okay, logs on this frequency, so start filtering. But it's even then that's stupid, because if logs are always on the same frequency, then they'd also already be looking there for any message from the Enterprise. It's like, oh, there's static. Well, we're just going to assume that there's something there, so we're already going to be working on removing the static, making the whole location beacon meaningless. I mean, it's like, it's either you're making a leap that's no reason to make the leap, or you're doing something that's unnecessary because they should already be doing that work. Just imagine what if you think this is annoying, me criticizing this. Just think about how I have to go through this one and writing this stuff myself. It's like, that's stupid, Jim. Rewrite it. Anyway, what is this next thing? Oh yeah. Now we're getting to the whole. Oh, another thing. 3.31 hours until Earth. What the hell is Spock doing? Like, I don't actually know how much time has passed from the previous chapter when last we saw he had to the airlock technician. So in theory, he's climbing into the airlock, but it's like, have hours passed? Have minutes passed? I don't know. Throwing that in there without giving me any semblance of how much time has passed from the previous chapter, and Spock doing that stuff, is actually a major problem. I hate when you got timeline inconsistencies or lacking coherence. Look at the Empire Strikes Back videos, because that book is horrible for that. But it's just, yeah. Anyway. So now it's, I think it was already mentioned, McCoy and Chapel have gone to Ilea's quarters to try to find something personal, some personal effect that may help to resurface her memories in the probe. And it has a line here that I'll have a little bit of criticism for it, but it is also a little amusing to me, because it's like, this is actually kind of prescient today. Technology would have long ago made privacy impossible, except that this had only made it more precious and desirable. And in the close confines of starship life, respect for another's privacy had become a powerful tradition. So, yeah, it is kind of funny where it's like, yeah, privacy is kind of an issue today. Because there is a host of ways in which that can be violated. Including ways you might not realize. I'm like the whole fingerprinting based on computer fingerprinting, where it's like identifying your OS. Every website basically gets to know what your OS is, what your browser is, and some other stuff. It may also be getting tracking information from other sites. So it's like, oh, you visited Amazon. Okay, I know that cookie's. There's a lot of stuff there. But there was also something, this was years ago now, where they found, from like 3 credit card purchases, they can uniquely identify people. Yeah, it's kind of scary. But not necessarily uniquely, but it would be like better than 80% accuracy with just 3. And the thing is, they could tell this because people would announce it on Facebook. Hey, I just bought this. Hey, I just bought this. Hey, I just bought this. Okay, we know exactly who you are now. At some point, I really do need to go back and rewrite it. Well, do editing to it and maybe put up a short story, like 15 pages long, maybe, where I talk about in there the idea that you could, like, what would happen if you had in society trash cans were always forensically examined? Because you do not realize the amount of evidence there is there. And part of what's described there is basically, yes, they're able to figure out, find murderers because they can build up a profile. Because, like, oh, we found somebody's DNA on this Starbucks cup that they threw away here. We don't know who this person is. We just assign a random number there, and we start tracking where the DNA appears throughout a city. But it's also, you know when each public trash can is actually picked up. So you know, okay, that had to have been during this time span because this is how frequently it's emptied. There's also then, well, where is it in the height? There's also, I said a Starbucks cup. Where's near Starbucks? Okay, well, how large is the cup? Okay, well, if it's this large, then it might not be from this Starbucks, it might be from that one, because the average person would take this long if they were walking, so they would use such a public trash can. It's like, you could work out a lot about somebody just by going through trash. And it is one of those things where it's like, some of this stuff that I'm talking about in there, it's like, no, that's actually completely achievable today. I do know that some of the stuff I was talking about, because it's also like a touch DNA, which this was around 2 decades ago. Somebody, I once overheard they were talking to some people that this is the level that touch DNA exists at. You shake hands with somebody. You now would go into like a room somewhere, hotel room, something like that. You put your hand down on the bed. You then get up and leave, and some crime happens in that room that you have nothing to do with. But that person you shook hands with, their DNA is on that bed and will be found, or might be found. That's the level that little bit of transfer to somebody else's hand then to the bed there's still enough there for it to be picked up. Now, to be fair, I'm sure that when forensics finds something like that, it's like, well, yeah, it's very low levels. It's undoubtedly just like touch DNA from this. It's the other person. That's who we may want to talk to, but still is. You could build up such a string of information just from doing that. And it was kind of interesting to write that through and try to think through, okay, how can all this be plotted out? Because it can also be, even talk about how if you can build up a profile for someone and you just know, okay, this is the way they take home from work every day. They might now be a witness to somebody having left a scene of a crime. Because you know they're going through at approximately this time of day every day. Let's go talk to them. Because maybe they saw something. And it's just, yeah. Privacy is... It is not just if you choose to respect in other people, as is pointed out here. There's also an element of, and it's kind of pointed out here, just not as clearly, technology would have long ago made privacy impossible, is the expense of using that technology. That in theory, you could build up profiles on information like that. That is eerie as far as how accurately they will identify somebody. And by the way, that also reminds me of something else I actually did see talked about within the past year, I think. I'm not sure. That fingerprints, they finally, like, apparently it's actually been brought up to a court now, or just somebody's done the research and pointed out, and this has been true, there's actually not been evidence, even though fingerprints are used as forensics in criminal cases, even at the beginning, we didn't know for certain that they were unique to people. Which doesn't mean they're invalid. No. It just means that you could use them for exclusionary purposes, where if if you know two people have different fingerprints, then you know you can exclude somebody based on what fingerprints you find. That would still always be true. But technically it's possible that there might be somebody else in the world that has my same fingerprints. Or at least, like, I believe maybe not all 5 for this hand, well, not like this entire handprint, but maybe in like this much might be similar enough to be confused with somebody else in the world. But yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I also wanted to talk about the whole, 'cause she's uncomfortable going through this stuff. But it's like, you're an officer on board a starship. You also, till McCoy got here, chief medical officer. There should be no concept of privacy to you at this point. I mean, it's like, you would be the person that potentially, in many situations, you're walking into somebody's room and you are going through that stuff. Okay, I mean, because that is going to be your responsibility. Because it might be, hey, they brought a pathogen on board. We need to find that. There was a medical emergency. You have to go in there and find and take care of them. I could also potentially believe, because they would be coroner, collection of effects. That might be them. I'm not actually sure, because I think sometimes it's been mentioned that, like in the original series or maybe in some of the movies, a yeoman doing that, which I don't know if that would actually make sense. I mean, like a chief medical officer makes sense in MASH, because I know I've talked about and complained about that series previously. It's the chaplain that does it. Well, Star Trek doesn't have chaplains on board. But it would make sense to me that the chief medical officer would be one of the people in charge of that. So it's like, yeah, it is weird where it's like, I get the whole feeling uncomfortable, but it's like, I could very much see it being no, this is legitimately part of your duties. You need to be comfortable with doing this. When it's necessary, guess what? It's necessary. But she finds the headband thing that we do see in the movie, and we get more information on it. And this is the whole, is this Roddenberry or is this the 70s? So I just wanted to look. 16 minutes. Okay. So Decker walks in. The probe follows shortly thereafter, but so she's holding it up, and hey, I'm just okay. I'm just trying to check. At one point, McCoy does handle it, which is important. So she finds this headband. Decker comes in, and McCoy is holding it apparently at this point, because Decker now explains they call it a love band. It's like, oh shit. I'm reading this like, oh no, where's this going? I know exactly where this is going. Why is it going here? We don't need to go here. It gets worse. They call it a love band, said Decker. The act of a male touching it can sometimes trigger strong sexual urges in the Deltan females. Chapel was amused to see McCoy immediately drop the headband onto a tabletop. It then goes on, and it's like, again, it's this 70s or Roddenberry. The ship's doctor probably had no objections to exotic triggering, in quotes, that's actually how it's written there, but he undoubtedly preferred choosing his own time and place. That's fair. It's like, is that necessary? No. I mean, the joke is fine, but you could have just stopped there. Didn't need to go further to explain it. But it's like, what the hell is going on here? Why do we have... And it's like, this is also just seems a little weird to begin with, where it's like, hey, I've touched this thing of yours over here. How does that make you feel? It's like, what the hell, man? It's just... I mean, it might be... What's unclear here from this statement is if it is a... This is just a lens cleaning cloth, but is it like, ooh, I'm touching it, what do you think? Versus a... Like, if it's actually on somebody and touching. It's unclear at this point about that, but later on it becomes clear. I'm just... Yeah, I'll just keep reading. I don't have it all highlighted, because I didn't want just one massive highlight, but... Wearing it in certain ways signifies that the Deltan woman is seeking a mate or seeking mating, or some other sexual thing. Deltan sex customs are considerably different from human ones. I was thinking about in TNG, when Picard is vacationing on Risa, and Riker told him, hey, there's, this little thing I'd like you to purchase it, while you're there. Why Picard does what he does is still odd. But it's like, yeah, you call it a Horgon, as I recall it is. I think that's the name of it, but yeah, if you could just buy one of those for me, that would be fine. Yeah, I'd really appreciate it, Captain. It's like, yeah, sure, no problem. Because Picard is painfully an idiot. Decker is worse. I'll get to that. But Picard is like, okay, I'll buy one. And he apparently, decided to go down to buy the pool, just somewhere to relax. He's got his book to read. He bought that. It's like, yeah, I'll just have that sitting there while I'm reading. And somebody walks, and all these women are giving him attention. It's like, what's going on? And then eventually one of them explains, to just own one of those, to have purchased one of those implies that you want to have sex, but to be showing one is like, I'm actively seeking. And he's like, that is not the case. covers it up, and then it's like, I'm gonna kill Will when I see him next. Because Riker completely set him up for that. And it's like, I mean, on the one hand, if he did that to Worf or Geordi, that's funny. Geordi would probably already know, to be honest. But Worf would... That's one thing. It's like, that kind of... But it's like, no, this is your superior officer. And I'm not actually sure what the age gap is between Jonathan Frakes and... forgive me, I'm blanking on his name. All I'm thinking is Jean-Luc Picard. That's not it. Obviously not. He plays that. Patrick Stewart. There we go. But that's almost like... Visually, to look at them, you would think it could almost be father and son. That is weird to do, man. Right? I mean, it's Riker's sense of humor, but still. And so apparently the Deltans are also like this. But then comes to McCoy. Decker, said McCoy, we're not suggesting that you mate with the thing. Kirk had already been thinking about this. Decker had as well. I mean, it's like, we've already been reading that. So, come on. It's like, thank you, McCoy, for objecting. But, for saying, that's all we're saying you gotta do. But it's also almost unnecessary. Because, I mean, McCoy's reaction by dropping it clearly implies he had no idea what was going on with that. And Decker, it's like he doesn't need to tell Decker. He doesn't need to speak up for that. It's like Decker would understand that implicitly, but McCoy hesitated. Was it wise to talk this openly in front of the probe? But it had shown no reaction at all to McCoy's calling it a thing, nor to the talk of sex and mating. It's still a little weird. Because in theory, it's still listening. It's just not caring. But now we get Decker's response, and it's... Look, Doctor, I'd mate with a photon warhead if it would help. I'm glad we don't need that kind of help. I get the whole you're committed, but it's like... You're committed to helping the ship and Earth and all that, but, What? Why is that what you went to, dude? I mean... It's almost like in very weird... I could believe there would be some TV series where it's like, the Klingons have captured and they're just like totally pranking somebody. And, well, no, the Klingons probably wouldn't do that. I'm not sure who would, but just doing that, just like trying to do that. And it's like, that would be horrible. Okay? That's like, this is obviously adults only, but, well, R-rated, I should say. Yeah, because it would be like, they just start snickering or something. But it's like, what the hell, man? Why are you going to this? Okay, why is that the thought you have, Decker? But it continues. But sex won't trigger any Ilea memory patterns because she has no memories of making love with me. Obviously, if that had ever happened, I wouldn't be here. When I first read that, I'm just like... I'm reading that as... Because of how this whole book has been kind of priming for them having had sex and such, it's like, oh, so you're saying that's like, I wouldn't be here because... we'd be in my quarters kind of thing. I mean, no, we do get an explanation. That's not what's going on. Skipping a little bit and just explaining why the celibacy oaths of Deltans are so important. The long evolvement of the Deltan race had not only heightened their sensuality, but had also resulted in the sex act becoming a complete union in which both body and mind were shared. Deltans, of course, found this natural and pleasant, but the experience of actually becoming part of another person's mind almost always incapacitated the human partner. Okay, sex with them kills you, or well, can render you mentally damaged. Alright, suddenly this makes a lot more sense. But there is... Hang on. Does that mean it's... Yeah, okay, it is a little later. There's more about the headband. But so we finally get this explanation. But it's still kind of weird, because, like, Deltans can't control this to, like, mitigate it so it's not gonna render their human lovers incapacitated? But it also is, like, it's odd to me how this is being talked about, because, like, would a Vulcan be able to handle it? Because, I mean, look, as I said before, them only having sex every 7 years is asinine. if it's logical for them to have sex, to try to have children more frequently than that, they will do so. That would be Vulcan. That would completely be in accord with being a Vulcan, in my opinion. But then it also is like, okay, if you're talking about this, you'd kind of believe they would, as a species, there would have been some experimentation with trying to mind meld at the same time, so you can have that same kind of intimacy where it's both physical and mental. So it does kind of make me wonder, would a Vulcan be able to survive that? But then it's also this idea that just becoming part of another person's mind almost always incapacitates the human partner. How many times has Spock mind melded with somebody and they're fine? I mean, it is like, I guess it is different, but it still is, it doesn't make a great deal of sense how this is being described here. Almost always incapacitated the human partner. There's also that. So the frequency of this, because that's going to come up later, but it is just... This is not a, is it 70s or is it Roddenberry thing? No, this would have to be Roddenberry, because he's coming up with all this himself. Like, this kind of detail, and it's just one of those where I don't see how that actually lines up. There should be other things going on as well. I mean, it's like you'd think there would be some level of control. I mean, it's kind of the whole going back to Vulcans as well. Sarek marrying human Amanda. 3 times stronger than the average human. And Pon farr. There's got to be some way of mitigating some of that. I mean, it's like... Yeah. Sorry, that's bumped a trash can with my foot. But going on, and it's like, oh god. But because Chapel's like, if you'd rather, we could grab something else. He's like, no. This is perfect. This is perfect to find out about the memory patterns. It's not only a very personal item. Yeah, no shit. This particular band was also a gift from me. Decker? Did you propose to her? Like, I mean, that's what this kind of seems like. How did I actually put it? Yeah. Yeah, how is this not a we're married now kind of thing? I mean, it's like... Now, unfortunately, it does go on to make him a sheer, unmitigated idiot. In his abysmal ignorance of Delton customs, he had bought it for her, thinking it merely a pretty ornament, and she had accepting it, marking him as hers, and he would have been if he had not run. So it is a yes, they married. But there's also, why the hell did she accept it? That, I mean, that is technically a significant problem. Because, I mean, I'm sorry, just to me, well, for one thing, I'm thinking, you know, if I ever do much traveling abroad, and it's like I'm in completely different cultures, it's like, you know what? Yeah, I might need to look into some of those rituals, because, like, really don't want to make that kind of mistake. Okay? But anyway, with Ilea here, it's like, okay, my point of view. If this happened to me, where woman, because for me it would be woman, did something that I would recognize as a proposal to me, but I also have full reason to believe she has no concept of that's what's going on. Even if I know I have feelings for her, and even if I suspect strongly or do know that she has feelings towards me, I am still not treating it that way. Okay, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to be like, she probably doesn't know. I'm going to explain it to her. I'm also going to do that in private. Just to be clear, because, like, no. But so this line, she had accepted it, marking him as hers, and he would have been if he had not. That should have been a. Thank you. Do you know what this is? It's just a headband, isn't it? Will, darling? It's like, I love you, but do you really mean to marry me? What? I mean, he was assigned to Delton. This is why I'm saying Decker's an idiot. He should have known. He should have learned. He should have learned all this shit. Because this is the whole thing with the Delton species is their sex stuff, right? So the pheromones that they just have sex with everyone apparently. I mean, he would have needed to have been briefed before setting foot on that planet. Because he was on Delton. He was assigned there. Okay? The idea that he would know any of that, but not this, is so stupid. Because it's also, it's like, oh yeah, depending on the position that it is on your head, that tells people what it is. He would need to have been trained on that. So that if he sees it in a certain way, it's like, yeah, I'm human, that's not going to work. So I'm going to walk on that side of the street or even a street over just to make sure that, you know, they're not, I mean, it's like, there is no excuse for his ignorance. All right? He is just being stupid here, and that is pissing me off. I mean, if it were like, it was my second day. Like, first day I got there, her father's the ambassador, so I'm living in their home. Right? Something like that, because just that's where I'm staying. I go out, exploring a little bit on my own, already stupid, but still, doing that. I see this, it looks pretty. I think she was pretty as well. I want to ingratiate myself to her and to the family. So I purchased that, brought it, and just said, I saw this, I thought it was nice giving it to you. And in that way, it's like, okay, I can kind of sort of understand this. He still should have known all this stuff before going in there. And that would even be with this hypothetical of, you know, like living there and as her father would be like, well, I need you to come over here. I need to explain something to you. Daughter, you can go to your room. Just, yeah, so this is what that thing is. Oh, I did not mean that. I know you did not mean it in that way. You're a stupid human. I'm okay with that. That's fine. Here's what I want you to do. Nothing. Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna talk to her to make sure she understands. I'm gonna mediate this. Not mitigate. I'm gonna mediate this. Figure this out. Don't worry. And also, don't worry about this. She will understand it as just a gift. Don't worry. You did nothing wrong here. We're just making sure everything's understood. I'm just trying to check if there's anything else before moving on. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Okay, let me put it like this for anyone just that doesn't understand why I find this so annoying, why it's pissing me off so much. The way in which they've been talking about throughout this book, Delton's sexuality. Him not knowing this feels to me like him going to Vulcan and not knowing various aspects of their logic religion. Okay? Like not understanding even live long and prosper. Or crap, because there's another one that's like in long life, something in long life. I don't think it's prosperity in long life, it might be. But yeah, it's like, and not knowing that, not knowing various symbols, not knowing who Serac is. No, Serac? It's one of those weird things where Serac and Serac are close enough that sometimes I get those backwards. But yeah, there really is no excuse. Okay. No, I don't think anything here, except that Decker hasn't heard anything from Kirk, so he doesn't know if anything else is being done. Like, in his mind, it's basically, this probe is our only hope of communicating with V'ger, and this is my task. So I need to do everything I can do here. He doesn't know what Kirk is doing. He doesn't know what Spock is doing. No one knows what Spock is doing. It's like okay, just to help understand his mindset. So I think it is. Hang on. Yeah, no, Ilea put it on her head, looked in the mirror, and she then adjusted it to what Decker knew was the proper place and angle. which is also kind of an issue. So he gave it to her. Then when did he run? Because when did he learn all this about the headband? Because it had to have been after giving it to her. But then where did he run? Did he run first? Did he run before realizing what he had done? Well, no, I just can't quite figure out, because he gave it to her, then he learned, then he ran? Because, I'm sorry, just going back to how I was play acting it out. It's like, if I found out, it would be if I was the one that made the mistake, it's like, I'd go and talk it through, and even if it is yeah, I do love you, I just didn't realize that that's what I was doing. Can we, not take that with the full significance? I mean, some significance, yes, that's fine, but not full significance? But it always seemed like, no, he just ran out on her. So it just... I'm just thinking it would almost make more sense if he just realized that, okay, the choice had come between being her husband or Starfleet, and so he left for that. It wasn't that, and that's separate from the headband stuff. That makes perfect sense. But it still is like, even with the, I don't understand the idea of, I made this mistake, and I'm just going to run in this way. It would seem like for this relationship that wasn't unhealthy, he at least would have talked to her before. Just, I don't know. You know what? Yeah, that actually might make the most sense. What just occurred to me. It might be that this was thrown in. That this was, while writing it, had an idea, put it in there, and didn't necessarily think through how that interacts with the timeline. Yeah. Yeah, and marking him as hers, and he would have been if she had not run. If he had not run. It's like, that seems like it had to have been a short period of time there, so when did he learn about the headband stuff? That he felt he couldn't explain it, that he had to run. Yeah. Anyway. So clearly she does have some memory of it, and he does, once it's on her head, he does reach up and lay his fingers against the headband. So maybe this is the whole, like, when doing that, that's the whole triggering of sexual urges that was described earlier. When you just say when a male touches it, that doesn't necessarily mean while wearing it, okay? That could just be, if it's just sitting in somebody's room, you go over and touch it to be clear, like, hey, let's, So it does seem like, from this, it might just be, once he's touching it there, which it's like, already, you're touching her head in a loving, caressing manner, and it does then talk about that he does that and then, like, reaches past to her actual skin. And it's like, you kind of don't need the headband at this point to make that clear. Just maybe that's just me. It would be fascinating, wouldn't it? Yeah, very fascinating. If I had somebody else I was doing these with. So it wasn't just me talking, but another person talking back and forth, especially if it were a woman, and just... Anyway, so he's doing that, and it is working on the body, working on Ilea's body. Will, it's a mechanism, said McCoy, concerned. It was like Ilea coming alive in front of him. I don't want to go too far with some of this, but if it's perfect in every other way, Doctor, it may be capable of mind sharing too. McCoy's response: do you understand what I said? It's a mechanism. There's no way it can't have any consciousness to share with you. And I'm troubled by this, because he's basically saying, and yes, it does come to, hands which had ripped through a Durasteel door were caressing him now, or were they plucking the clothing from his body? So, and the doctors leave. So, yeah, I mean, they are going to have sex now. But it's like, hang on, you literally had, close towards the beginning of the chapter, human and Delton together, human left incapacitated. And now he's like, I'm not, it looks like this is her. It's functioning like her. But we really don't know. McCoy's making a good point. We don't know that all the mechanism here is just like that. But even if it were exactly like Ilea, even if it were Ilea herself, I'm risking becoming a mental cripple. It just, the fact it's in the same chapter, it is just one of those things that it makes me wonder, who edited this? And like, did they read through it and be like, Gene, isn't he risking becoming incapacitated by doing this? Because isn't that a reason for him not to do this? Or even if he does it, but it's like there needs to be somebody not far away, like, Docs, I kind of need you to wait outside the door because if I'm incapacitated, one of you try to take advantage of the situation to manipulate her to benefit the ship and Earth. It's... It because I mean, it feels like that's been happening throughout the book, where it's just, hey, idea, put it in. Hey, new idea, put it in. Hey, do these ideas connect? No. Are they consistent with each other? No. Are they coherent with each other? No. Why are they here then? And by the way, with those three could technically, like, each one is the same question, but yeah. It frustrates me because I am technical enough that I notice this stuff, and it is a problem. I mean, it's going to be interesting when I start doing these with my own stories, because I'm going to be able to share the background on writing some of them. And it's like, I got one chapter in Failure where the first way I wrote it, I felt the characters talking to me. One in particular just saying that I don't like how this went. That isn't how I think it should go. So I'm like, you know what? All right, yeah, I got your point. All I did was flip the order of things. There were two main things that happened in that chapter. I just flipped them. I kept a lot of the same, because one of them was a conversation. And by having it first, there was, on one side of it, some anger, some frustration. By flipping it, though, now that it wasn't there. Dude was calm. But I actually kept a lot of the same lines that was said, but now they were being said with a different tone of voice, essentially, and it completely changed it and makes it better. So it's just, I see this stuff, and it's like, when doing my own writing, remember, Failure was also my second novel that I self-published, okay? So still, very early on in my experience with writing. Well, writing for the purpose of telling a story, I should say. I did write plenty in school. Not in that type of writing, but still. So it's like, I get that, and so I see stuff like this, and how do you make this mistake? Somebody should have called this out. It's like, this doesn't line up. Because, as I said, just changing the order of things can completely change what's going on here. And you have, in the same chapter, two different events. Two pieces of information that when you put them together makes this an incredibly risky thing, but you're not talking about it in terms of there being risk. You're not talking about it even in terms of this may fail anyway, even if you are fine, Decker, even if there's no issue whatsoever with what's about to happen to you, it still becomes a risk of it might not achieve anything just because it's not actually Ilea. It's a mechanism. And it's like, there's no discussion of that there. It seems more like it's just, he's finally giving in. He's had the temptation. He's had the desire. To be fair, he's also got the relationship with Ilea. So it's like, you know, there's that. It's like, finally, it's like, yeah, she's dead. Technically, he's an imitation of her core. Yes. Something that is imitating her corpse is what he's going to have sex with. It's all kinds of weird. But it's like, no, I can understand forgetting that because it still is very recent since that and looks exactly like her. It has been acting like her in certain ways when, oh yeah, so it's like, can set that aside. But still, it's like, Yeah, I'm gonna be useless now. Regardless, it bugs me. But one thing, I did. There is one thing about this that I do appreciate. I think that this is not being done correctly, not being done well. That, you know what? Yeah. Okay. This is how I would be writing this. That Decker actually resists. He doesn't allow it to happen, but he explains what will happen to the Ilea probe to explain the whole mental connection. Explain that because that is something that I could believe the probe would have an interest in, and also Ilea's own memories have an interest in it. So trying to now connect them that way, so her action, the actions of the probe of Ilea will align here. Do that and try to use that as the wedge to get into manipulating, but connecting with V'ger somehow. Because then it's also you're setting this up essentially that it is possible for her, because she is Deltan, to connect with somebody in that way. Because knowing that it ends with V'ger wants a connection with the creator. Decker being human is an example of the creator. The probe is the avatar of V'ger and therefore can serve as the way to achieve that connection. And it's like, okay, so not necessarily directly with sex, but it is just the union of body and mind between Decker and probe Ilea. Like, you're building up to that. So him having just resisting the temptation himself, but leading to you could be leading up to that moment, the climax of the movie. Yeah, maybe not the best choice of words, climax of the story, but it's like, still, it's like you could do that, and I think that would be better. I think that would be better because at that point, you're avoiding the incapacitation issue. You're avoiding that. You're also avoiding any of the, this is an impersonation of her body. Right? This is not actually Ilea, it is an impersonation of body. You're avoiding that issue. Right? So it's like, it solves various things there until it's like, okay, this is when it is actually critical. And then it's also a, you know what, everything led up to this moment. Their relationship, the fact she is Deltan, all of it, and V'ger's desire for that connection, all of it has led up to this moment. Whereas this, it's like, well, no, because now in theory you're technically already achieving that, and now it has to be achieved again at the end. So it's like, yeah, I do not like how this is going. I think a lot of this not necessary. Yeah. I don't really know what more to say, but I'm not sure I should just end it just now. I guess one thing is, I'm pretty sure this is the only one of the 6 that Roddenberry wrote himself. The others were all written by other people, by, following his story, but it still is written by other people, so hopefully that means they will be less 70s. Oh, man. It just... It doesn't seem appropriate how this is going. It doesn't seem that this is what the story needs. It could be achieved by other means. And I think some of those means, like I said, to have it all building up to the end of the book, the end of the story with, well, the end of V'ger, building up everything to that, I think would be better. So you're putting off. To use a different example that's wildly different, it would be like having Bruce, the name for the shark in Jaws, appear sooner. It's like, no, you leave that later. You build up everything to that. Okay? And there's also, this is also true. She has already demonstrated, Ilea demonstrated by helping Chekhov relieve the pain, that she is capable of achieving a mental connection without sex involved. So this actually could be a time when it's like he is explaining to her this is what would happen, but we're not going to do that. However he wants to say it. But here, do this. and you can start that connection. Like, that's even something that could be in there. It's like that so many humans previously, when they tried this, were left mentally incapacitated. But what had been, you could have it be like Decker's saying, but those where that did not happen, there was like a long courtship, if you will, where they were preparing for it. They were already building up mental connections achieved by other means. It's like, have that be what's happening there. Because then it is basically he is running through the courtship with Ilea that he never necessarily did previously. Because he didn't know, and also he was committed to Starfleet. And now it's like, well, he has to for his commitment to Starfleet technically, but it's leading him down the path of trying to find a way to have it all work out together, or to actually give up Starfleet. But it's like, you could do that, you could do it in a way that would have it be meaningful, have it still building instead of having this climax here. I mean, it's just, yeah, I see the better way. I see the better ways of doing it, and it comes back to the whole thing for me with sex, violence, cursing, even alcohol, drugs. Anything's allowed to be in a story, but they need to have purpose to the story. If there's not a purpose for them being there, get them out. There's no, if they are not crucial to the story, they're gone. There's no reason for it then. Alright, so it's like superhero fantasy stories. There's violence in them. Why? Because it's a superhero fantasy story. Superheroes punch bad guys. That's kind of how it goes. Even in the science fiction story with A Letter from Catherine, because I mean, there's also I Call My Ship Catherine, but let's go with, well, that also doesn't really have much violence. But A Letter from Catherine, there's not much violence in there either, because there's no need for it. There is talk of certain things, such as a war, but it's still, there's very little violence actually in there, because there's no need for it. In fact, I'm not, by saying very little violence, realistically, there's no violence. But some people may include that just the talk of war is being violent. The fact that Roman's life is in danger at times, that is violence. There's some people that would define it that way. I don't want to argue with that. It still is a very low level, because there's no need for it there. And I just feel like we could, like this story would also benefit from some of that. But my rules, not Roddenberry's rules, not anyone else's rules. But I would just add this before stopping. Part of the reason why I had that rule is I don't want to write a story. I never want one of my stories to be read because it's titillating. I want it to be read because it's good. That's why it always has to have a purpose. Now, if something has purpose and it's titillating, fine. But it would still have to be a, no, this is not here just to excite you. It's here because it's necessary for this aspect of the story. Okay, so it's that is my view on it. So that I don't want to ever be accused of doing something just to have people looking at things, being like, if it were on television, it warns you that, oh yeah, there's violence in this. Oh good, that'll make the episode good. It's like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. Or there's sex in this. Oh, that makes it good. It's like, no, that's not. I hate that. Anyway. There's been enough of my blathering, enough of my ranting. To be fair, this story may still end up ending well, depending on how this is referenced when they finally meet V'ger and the whole connection thing actually occurs. That will be interesting. It may still all connect up very well. We shall see. But still is, I don't think this is the best way to have done it, so. For what I've read so far, but we shall see, And I also, what the hell's up with Spock? We gotta find out about that. Hopefully that's a main focus for the next chapter. But until then, see you next time.